You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
We were all running like an operating system, a hidden operating system, which was still completely rooted in the past, really locking in all of those old beliefs about what a woman can do and can't do, and how we're limited and how we should behave and shouldn't behave, which was completely at odds with being a modern professional woman out to succeed in the world.
Dr. Anne Whitehouse is an author. She's a scientist, a female power alchemist, and a subconscious healing specialist. She had a burnout in the world of engineering, and that led to her developing a pioneering system that frees women from the toxic energies of the status quo so they can level the energetic playing field and succeed in the world without being undermined or sacrificing their feminine energy. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Excited to have you. And you told me before we started that you're located in England. So if anybody's wondering where that is from, I love when people join me from all over the world. So this is exciting. So the first question I always have is, what is a woman of value to you?
Oh, what is a woman of value? Well, when we get past the fact that every woman is of value, what we're really talking about is really owning that value, knowing it, feeling it, living it. And this isn't something that women do naturally, because there's so much that conditions us to negate that, to block it, to not feel it and not realize it. And very often we go through such challenging experiences, and it's those that lead us to those moments where we have a choice. We can either go up or we can go down, and it's those life-changing moments, I think, that tend to catapult women into really understanding who they are and seeing that value, and they're not only living it in their own lives, but using that to create things, to be an inspiration and to transform the world.
Ooh, love this. Everything you just said resonated so deeply for me. I definitely found my value at a catapulting moment, at one of those, pivotal moments. And I think that so many of us get to that point where we either go up or down. And yes. I know, like, my divorce, for example, was a pivotal moment for me. And so many people were trying to get me not to get divorced because they were miserably married. And why can't I stay with a lousy marriage? Why can't I stay stuck and find a way to make it work for another 20 years? And it was just not an option. And so, we all have choice. And I love that you also brought in creativity and changing the world, because that's so much about who I am and what I stand for as well. When we create, and all of us have the ability to create. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm not creative enough. But tell us what you mean by create, because I think a lot of people listening will say, well, I'm not an artist or a musician.
Right, okay, that's not what I'm talking about. Although I'm both an artist and a musician, that's not what I'm talking about. It's like this. How shall I explain this? When we go through experiences that are really challenging, so many times, I've heard people talk about being a survivor, and I've been through some very challenging things, which we might maybe talk about in a few minutes. But when I was in that position, and someone was talking to me about being a survivor, what I thought was, no, that's not enough. My life isn't about surviving. And it's not even about thriving. It's like, if you've been through really hard stuff, it helps both us and the world if we can transform that experience to really make a difference with it. It's like, if I've gone through this suffering and I've learned so much, then if I can create something amazing, something that's going to transform other people's lives or prevent them from going through what I did for so many years, then that adds a whole new level of purpose to my life. And I mean, I've been through that definitely twice in a very big way, as well as smaller ways as well. So it's really this understanding, and this is where we come into my alchemy. Shall I talk about that for a second?
Yeah, let's talk about that, and then I'd love to hear you share your pivotal moments, those two big moments.
So alchemy is that turning that lead into gold. You're turning the darkness into light. It's like when you have a catapult and you're pulling that ball back on the elastic, and you're pulling it back into the negative energy. And that's the negative life experience. But if you then release that, the more you've been in that negativity, the further you can fly into the positive. So that is the concept of alchemy, that when we are going through those really dark, challenging, dark night of the soul kind of experiences, that in fact gives us the potential to create something amazing, to have a big shift, a big transformation of energy. So what you end up with is many, many times more bright and sparkly and inspirational in whatever field you're in than if you hadn't been through that challenge. So that's the way I look at it. And that's just that concept can be so life-changing when somebody really is going through those dark times. But then it's not just the concept, you can then live it, and the reward, the fulfillment that you get from that is just amazing.
Yeah, so I want to just highlight that something that you said, which is that you have to go through it. And a lot of people are so afraid of facing these shifts. It's like that negative space, that dark night of the soul. And what I have found with my clients, like when we really look at what are the feelings there, face it, because otherwise it keeps coming back, right? So if you can, speak to that a little bit about what would you say to somebody who is afraid of really going deeper into it, because it's scary?
Well, of course it's scary, but it's looking at the short term versus the long term. Because if you're in that situation where you have something big to deal with, if you leave it, if you suppress it, if you say, I don't want to go there, you're not freeing yourself from it. It's going to sit under the surface like a poison, and it will undermine you in every single possible way until you get to the point where everything implodes and you have no choice. So if you can just have that little bit of a higher perspective to be able to say, yes, I know this is scary, but if I don't take that step, find that courage and take that step. And you don't have to do that alone. There's so much, so many people who are able to support you through these things. But just by taking that step, you are then moving forwards towards freedom. But if you're held back simply because you don't want to go look at that darkness, it's going to continue to undermine you for the rest of your life. So although it's challenging, it is beyond worth it.
Yes, that was a great explanation. I recently spoke to a man who was on a dating site, because I'm single, and he sounded great on paper. And as soon as we got on the phone, it was so clear to me that he was so stuck in this victim place, like his whole life. And he started telling me how torturous it was in college and high school, and how dating was so hard. And he's really doing all this work on himself, but he was obsessed with exercise, and he was obsessed with all these other things that were really unhealthy. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to get off the phone because he didn't take responsibility for any part of what went wrong. I mean, although he was doing the work, and at the end, he said to me, so tell me what you're looking for so I can know if we're a good match. And I said, to be honest with you, you're doing all this work now, which is lovely. I've been doing this work for, 13, 15 years, and I'm in a very different place. And so I'm going to wish you well, but we're not a good match. And he sent me the most horrible text about it's people like me who destroyed him in college, and he's not going to date anymore because it's too painful, and I act like I'm superior. Oh my God. And it's that stuckness that will keep him where he is. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, but I can't coach him or change him. He has to be ready to, you know, that's not what I'm
Absolutely.
on dating
You
sites
can't do
for.
it for someone. You can't do it for them. They have to be ready and take that step.
Yes. So let's talk about those pivotal moments for you. You said there were two big ones. Can you
Two
talk
big
about
ones.
those?
Yes. Okay. So the first one, which I thought was going to be my biggest life challenge, turned out that it wasn't. It was so I started off as, I guess you'd call me a high-powered academic. I studied science at Cambridge University. I got a PhD. I did postdoctoral research fellowship. And then I got what we call in the UK a lectureship, which I think to you would be college professor. And this is in an engineering department. And off I went, full of excitement and motivation and absolutely determined to prove myself and prove that I could be as good as the men in this very male-dominated environment, and be a role model to the few women on the course. And I was highly qualified, highly capable. And then I got through the door, and it just felt as if the rug had been pulled out from under me. It was as if it was more than not being accepted. I was being undermined right, left and centre. And I couldn't see why. This was the thing. It was like an undercurrent where I didn't fit in. And my stress went up, my anxiety went up. I had terrible insomnia, I began to get ill all the time. And after it was about 6 years, I'd done a complete, or what I now call a spectacular burnout. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I'd lost not only my scientific career that I'd worked so hard for, but I'd also lost my health as well. And so there I was, and I remember distinctly, I was lying on the sofa, and I was too weak to literally reach up my arm and pick up a pen. And I had this moment of clarity, is how I describe it. And it was literally, I'm not prepared for my life to be over at the age of 30, just not prepared to let that happen. And I'd already been told by the medical profession there was nothing they could do for me because they couldn't find anything medically wrong. I was just burnt out with this chronic fatigue. And they basically left me saying, good luck, right? Mm. And it was just like, it was like, how best way to put it? It was like a light going off in my head. And I said, I'm just not prepared to accept that this is my life. Just not. And I'm going to make it different. And although it took a long time, that was the moment where things shifted in terms of my outlook, the opportunities, the ideas that came to me. And I did everything I possibly could to investigate why I'd reacted the way that I had in an environment where, yes, it was male dominated, but I was totally qualified and capable. I could do the job just fine. And so that took me on this real deep dive into the subconscious world. And I analysed exactly what is going on this subconscious level, this undercurrent that I'd felt back then. And I realised what it is that's undermining women like me in that kind of situation. And over the years, I worked with so many other women, and the same pattern came up again and again and again. And it was astonishing. Highly motivated, highly capable, highly qualified women, they start pushing the boundaries in these very conventional professions, and suddenly the stress goes up, the anxiety goes up, and everything begins to fall apart for no readily apparent reason. So that is what I've been working on for the last 2 decades. And that's what the system that I worked out to free ourselves from all this is, that's what's published in my book, my Pull Back Your Power. And it's the whole thing of not only understanding why we react the way that we do, and there's a very logical reason for that, but how we can then detach ourselves, create our own power foundation, I call it, and then be in your own magnificent energy. So we're back to where we started, the woman of value, in order to then thrive and succeed in those environments instead of being crushed and ending up having to leave those careers.
Mm. Wow. So many health issues, so many issues, insomnia, this competition, and it being totally not accepted, as you weren't accepted as a woman from the start.
No.
So much pushback.
Yeah, exactly. And it was all, there were obviously some people who were blatantly unpleasant, but that wasn't the main problem. It was the subtle everyday attitude. You know, there's this undercurrent. I keep using that word because that's exactly how it felt. And it basically, what I discovered was that we were all running like an operating system, a hidden operating system, which was still completely rooted in the past, really locking in all of those old beliefs about what a woman can do and can't do, and how we're limited and how we should behave and shouldn't behave, which was completely at odds with being a modern professional woman out to succeed in the world. So you get this huge conflict because you're pushing forward and, you know, going to embrace your abilities, your opportunities, and rightly so, but the subconscious is whispering all the time, you shouldn't be doing this, this is forbidden, you'll be punished for this. And we don't know it's there, and that is the big problem, because if we knew what was happening, you know, we'd say, well, that's ridiculous. You know, I'd just be, you know, of course I'm allowed to be here, of course I'm entitled. But because we don't realize what the subconscious is doing, we just get this kind of message saying, you're in danger, you shouldn't be here, you've broken the rules. And that then triggers, and this is the key point, that then triggers us to think, well, maybe I'm not good enough. I can't hack it here. There's something wrong with me. I have to be more than perfect to be good enough. And that's where that spiral of, you know, imposter syndrome, you know, lack of confidence, that well-documented confidence gap between women and men, that's where that negative spiral forms. And of course, once you're on it, it just magnifies and magnifies.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I can totally relate to so much of this, again, because I was raised by a strong mom, but as I got older, I realized how many limiting beliefs she had about herself, about women, about, you know, her obligations in life rather than her, you know, what she's choosing. And that was one of the first ahas for me as I was divorcing, was like, I get to choose.
Right.
And,
Yes.
right. So I'm just curious if you've ever looked back and thought, well, if I had this mindset and I made these changes, would I have been successful in the engineering world in this career?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it's like this. I know that my conscious mindset was fine, but I was being undermined by all of this hidden programming. And I was brought up in a very equal opportunities household. So my parents were all of the attitude, get out there, succeed, be an engineer, beat the men, excellent. You know, I never had anything holding me back in that way, but it was all further down. It was deeper down on this sort of energetic level. Mm-hmm. And I now know what I do with women now is to show them how to literally turn off that subconscious response and pull back the power that then enables their subconscious to feel safe. And when it feels safe, that's when your mind has another look around at your surroundings and says, oh my goodness, it's the 21st century. What was I worried about? Right? Yeah. And then you can come out of the fight or flight, and then your confidence naturally goes up, you relax, you perform better, you give out a different energy, and everything begins to turn in the right direction. So if I'd had that knowledge and that expertise back then, I would probably be still an academic and not have had the roller coaster of a life that I've had. So, I mean, I personally believe that the reason I went through that was specifically because I was meant to work this out. And I was meant to create the system. I definitely have that, because what I found was that when I went into healing myself, I didn't go in as having sessions with people. I immediately went into, I want to do this training. And most of the things I learned, I ended up as a teacher. And then it wasn't going deep enough for my second life challenge. I began to develop my own techniques in all of this. So,
well, let's talk about the second challenge now that we're here.
Well, this was very hard. So I was on the point of launching all of this knowledge into the world, of this mission of helping so many women avoid the burnouts and everything. And this was 2014. And then we had a most terrible tragedy in our family. My daughter, my daughter Rebecca, who was 7 years old, she died very suddenly in her sleep. And basically, she'd had a normal day at school. I put her to bed. I went to get her up in the morning, and she was cold, and she died in the night, and we had absolutely no warning. So you can imagine your world completely shatters when that happens. So that was, I honestly believe if I hadn't had my deep understanding of how the mind reacts to trauma and that kind of thing, and the tools that I developed, I really don't see that I would have come through that. It was just so terrible. But as it was, right at the beginning, even in the first days when I was literally, it wasn't a case of take it a day at a time, it was take it a breath at a time. It was that bad. I was thinking already in my head, not prepared for my life to be ruined because I've lost my child. And at the time I was 45 when she died. And so many people were saying to me, your life is essentially over. You'll never get over this. Everything is ruined. They were saying this to me. And in my head, I was thinking, no, I've got another, 4 or 5 decades, hopefully. And I've got so much to do. I can't be destroyed by this. Instead, I've got to find a way to find that alchemy again, to find what can I really do from this awful pain that is going to make a difference. That's going to be a legacy in her honor, if you like. And this really took me to the next level, because naturally I'm quite I'm quite reserved, I'm quite shy, I'm quite quiet, and the thought of getting my ideas, my theories out into the world is deeply scary. All the usual visibility issues that women tend to have. And I was already working online. I would have my clients, I had my students, I was running my courses, but not really expanding beyond that. And there I was with all this knowledge. I thought, no, I need this to get to the women who need it. And that means I have to really get out there. I have to write a book. So I wrote the book. And this is the thing with Rebecca. She was like a little spark of light. She was different. She'd go into a room and everybody would be lighted up by her energy. It was quite astonishing. And she had, how shall I put it? She was like the epitome of feminine power and confidence and magic all rolled up into one. Mm. And she was fearless, so unlike me, so unlike me. She was absolutely fearless to the point of it absolutely freaking me out as a mother when she would just amble off with complete strangers and talk to random men on trains and things. But but that being said, she was absolutely fearless, and she just had this joy of life and living and new experiences. And I thought that essence, of feminine empowerment, that's what we all deserve. But so many of us are held back because of the way we've been conditioned and by the things that we've been through and our struggles and all the stuff we tell ourselves about not being good enough, and I can't put myself forward and all of that. And so it was always Rebecca who was kind of overlighting the whole process. So all of it, it's kind of for her. It's for all women, but it's kind of for her, because what I saw in her, I just wanted or to have that as the purpose for my work. I hope I make some kind of sense talking about this, but it really was. She was the inspiration that was big enough for me to get over my natural reticence, my natural fear of putting myself, my story out there. Because in my book, I tell some stories of my journey in engineering, and it's quite personal stuff. So it's a big deal to publish it to the world, But it was that need, to make something really significant, something that would really help so many people. And that came from this terrible loss of losing my daughter.
Mm. Well, wow. I'm sorry for your loss, and I love how you turned it around and used it as inspiration to create a legacy for Rebecca.
Thank you.
I also lost a child, and he was 5 years old, but he had been sick, and his name was Avi. I also have a daughter named Rebecca, by the way. And Avi, I believe that my going through 5 years of many, many challenges with him really helped me to find my voice in hospitals, stand up to people in power,
right, absolutely,
trust my intuition, right? All those things that were the beginning of the spark of who I became later on. But it's, I think that again, we have these challenges, we could go up or down. And are you married? Did you have a husband at the time?
Yes, I'm happily married. In fact, it's our 27th anniversary on Friday.
Oh, wow. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
So I'm just curious how you both work through this, because in our case, my husband really struggled. How did your husband deal with all of this loss?
In a very different way, because I was very used to the self-analysis and the self-awareness and the going to those places. I worked really, really hard to get through it. My husband, a lot less so. He has, he takes things inside, just like most men, and gets on and focuses on work and all that kind of thing in order to process it. What we do have, which has been just such a blessing, is we have a son who he's now 17, and initially we both had we need to get through this for our son. He needs us. But in fact, as the years have gone by, and he's a young man now, the way that he has transformed and become so sensitive and mature and phenomenal for such a young person, he's been an absolute strength to both of us. So I think that our son has been I think that's been essential for my husband, to be honest. I mean, me too, obviously, but without having done the work, So I mean, it's still a journey, as you know. So it's been nearly 6 years for us now.
Wow.
And some days it feels like it was last week, and other days life is pretty good.
Yeah.
But for both of us, with my husband, he's launched business and all kinds of things, and again, for both of us, it's really, we need to make the world a better place. We need to make a difference because of what we've been through. That's really the bottom line to everything.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's, when you can use tragedy as a catalyst to create positive change in the world, I think that's the legacy. There's so much that we can share based on what we go through, and I think a lot of people just turn to victim, like the man I was speaking about earlier.
Exactly.
That's what keeps us stuck. So let's go to the present now. What are you currently creating in the world?
Oh, what am I creating in the world? Well, I'm really excited. Basically, what I'm working on now is I'm getting a group of women together for online, obviously. This is for, I'm calling it activating our female power voice. And what I'm doing is I'm taking my system that I've created in my book, and we are taking it to the deeper level, but specifically helping women to speak up, to be heard, to be able to bring that power in, so they can hold that sort of unshakable confidence if they're in a meeting, if they're being interrupted or talked over, and if they're struggling to, you know, feel or be given the credibility that they deserve in their careers. Because I think this is so key, and I'm glad we've kind of come around to this. It's, you know, because at this time in history, you know, we are the first women to have the freedom and the opportunities. You know, my mother had some opportunities, my grandmother had no opportunities. So in just 2 generations, everything has shifted, but we are still struggling against this legacy that's underneath. So the more we can free ourselves from that and create this new power foundation for women, that means that the next generation of women won't have to go through the difficulties that we have. And, you know, so many women, they start off in their careers, but they end up pulling out for all the reasons I've talked about, you know, and that's not right. We shouldn't have to do that. And after all these years of equal opportunities policies, we still have far too few women at the top. You know, we should have 50%. We don't have anywhere near that. So my sort of mission is to help women who want to succeed without the personal cost. And the first step, the absolute first step, is being able to hold that power to speak up, to feel safe speaking up, and to shift the power dynamic between them and their colleagues. And so many times I've heard about the environment is toxic. That's how it felt to me, that it felt toxic going into work. This is I think the place to start. So that's the current project.
I love it. I don't know if you know that I have a book out, and it's called Becoming a Woman of Value, and it's the core principles in the book are show up, stand up, speak up. And I feel like our mission is so similar.
I think so.
I just think that women, you know, and I deal with women in the relationship space primarily, but also at work. And we haven't been taught how to be direct, how to speak up when our feelings are hurt, how to say it in a way that doesn't shut people down, you know, how to make it a conversation that's connected and not divisive. And you know, we have so much empathy and sensitivity, and we have to really work on empowering our voice. And it's such an important place. I mean, it's I also teach boundaries, because that's also a big part of it. So I love that you're doing this. So what are your goals for the future? What do you see for yourself and for, you know, just taking your mission even further?
The next big project is going to be the next book. So this is the other side of the coin. This is the book for men, because we're all currently running this archaic operating system that's undermining women so much, but it's also undermining the men. And we can't expect, when we really take back our power, then that starts to pull the rug out of the men in our lives, because the power dynamics change. You know, it's nobody's fault. We've just inherited this legacy from history. It's simply acknowledging, understanding, having awareness that is not helping us at all, because it's totally outdated. And when men, the challenges that men often have, like depression and male suicide is such a terrible problem. This is, I believe, also because they're getting the wrong messages from the subconscious. So the book for men is going to be helping men to free themselves from what's holding them back in their subconscious from this undercurrent operating system. And it's also going to help men to understand how to help women. Because so often I've heard men at work saying, I've got these women in my group, and I want them to speak up, and I want them to put their ideas forward, but I don't know how to help them. I don't know why they're not doing it. So this is where I come in. So I can absolutely help them to know what to do, what to say, But it's more than that. It's how to sort of shift things energetically so that the power isn't being just automatically sucked away from the women, because that's the default, and that's the problem. So this is the book that's going to address the other side of the coin for the men. So that's the next big project.
I love it. There are, I remember reading books about the other side. There's a book called That's What She Said. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I'm not.
Yeah, so I forgot the author, but she's talking to men about how to help women and how to be partners in this whole change. And she had been on a plane talking to a man, and it kind of was the catalyst of like, men just totally don't get it. Like they don't really understand how to be in the world either. And I think it is a two-way street. So I love that you're doing this. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, I know, you just like, as soon as I asked you, you also got so excited, and I love how, this creative energy is just coming through.
I'm so passionate about it. I'm so passionate. So
I can hear it. Yeah, it totally is. And I see it in the dating world as well. Like in my other career as a dating coach, we have all this Me Too, and women are speaking up and they're saying no, and the men are like asking permission for everything, and some of them, and they're like afraid to even make a call or make, it's like they have to check in. And it's also been emasculating for men. So it's like, where do we find where women are not taking on the roles of the, the masculine, and having that be the lead, when women want stronger men, and men are just like, I don't know what to do anymore. So we have to educate each other. I love that. So this is the lightning round, where I'm going to ask you a bunch of quick questions. Okay. And you ready?
Okay.
All right. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
I used to think I wasn't good enough.
Good enough. Okay. What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
Oh, it was this subconscious legacy that I didn't know I had.
And what is the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
The best advice is to have a look at the life of your grandmother and see what her aspirations were, her level of education, her freedom, but her money, what she was able to do in her life. That is actually your own subconscious benchmark. Believe it or not, that's your own subconscious benchmark. That's what your subconscious thinks you should be doing and what you should be limited by. And that is a brilliant way of you understanding why you're getting messages you're not good enough. You're not good enough because you aren't limiting yourself to that life from the past. So in actual fact, this is the key thing. The more you feel that you're not good enough, what is actually happening is it's a measure of how brilliant you are, because it's a measure of how much you've pulled away from the limitations of the past. So you can turn the whole thing on its head and say, goodness, I'm actually amazing because I've come so far from where my female ancestors used to be. And just that awareness is enough to kick you into the right direction, even when you're feeling ground down, totally not good enough, lacking confidence, spiraling into a negative place. If you just take a moment and stop and have that understanding, goodness, my subconscious wants me to be way back there, but I've achieved this in my life, and I'm feeling not good enough because I've broken those benchmarks, I've broken those rules. That actually means I'm very talented, and I'm very strong, and I'm courageous, and I'm hardworking, and that can just shift the whole thing.
That's a great exercise. I never thought of that. And as soon as you started talking, I'm thinking of both of my maternal and paternal grandmothers. And yeah, I remember when my mom once told me that she was a martyr because she came from a long line of martyrs. And so that's just the way it is. It was just like, no. So, at least she recognized where it came from. And I said to her, yeah, I recognize where it came from too. And that's why I'm not that anymore. It's like we have the choice to not just stay stuck in people pleasing and martyrdom and playing small and shrinking to make other people shine.
Exactly. But we have to have the awareness first, because if we just go
Yes.
on autopilot, we're never going to realize there is any choice to make.
I love that. And now let's focus back on you. And what advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I would basically tell her, don't worry, you have got what it takes. You are strong enough, you are courageous enough, that there are going to be big challenges, but you're going to get through them. So I was on the right course, but a bit of reassurance that I had what it took, that would have been great.
Yeah, you got this. We got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole world is implying that you don't have what it takes and that something is wrong with you. But no, there was nothing wrong with me, and that's what I would say. There's nothing wrong with you. You're absolutely as you're meant to be. You just need to go on a journey to really discover just how powerful you are.
What is something that people often get wrong about you?
Well, but when I tell them how I used to be, tell them what I struggled with, or they read my book, they say, "Good grief, Anne, I can't believe that you were like that." That's what they usually get wrong. They think that I'm so confident and outgoing, and they are astonished when I say how shy I was, that I'd be the person in the corner playing with my coffee spoon, trying not to talk to anybody. That's how I used to be. And so that, actually, it's a beautiful example, really, that it's not that there was anything wrong with my character, and there's not anything wrong with anybody's character. Basically, it was my conditioning, my subconscious conditioning, that wasn't allowing me to feel safe being myself. And when I worked out how to shift that energetically, then everything changed, because I was finally feeling safe, subconsciously feeling safe, to simply be myself in whatever place it was, and simply speak up and talk to people and express my opinion and all of that. And that had been completely and utterly missing, because my subconscious was saying, forbidden, forbidden, forbidden. So, if somebody is shy and a bit retiring, then that isn't a problem. You don't have to turn yourself into a completely different person to succeed or to open your mouth. It's a question of freeing yourself to feel safe being yourself.
I love it was your conditioning that wasn't allowing you to feel safe being yourself. People always say, just be yourself. And it's one of the hardest things that we do, because there's so much conditioning and so many layers. And when you discover, because I was also very shy and, quiet, and never spoke up until I started to do this work. And I realized that a lot of it for me was fear of judgment. And it's easier to be quiet and hide than to actually bring all that you have and be judged. And so I stayed safe, and that's unsafe now, to stay hidden that way. And I think that's the shift that happens. So finally, Anne, how would you like to be remembered?
I have this dream that the knowledge that I've discovered and the techniques really gets out into the world, so that not only hundreds or thousands, but millions of women can shift that power dynamic. And if I could be remembered as the woman who started that, then it would make everything worthwhile a million times over.
Well, I really hope that your dream will come true, and it sounds like you're already on that path.
I'm doing my best. So.
This is beautiful. So, Anne, how can people find you?
Well, you can find me at my website, which is feminineconfidence.com.
Well, thank you for sharing this inspirational conversation with our audience. And I know that you will have inspired many, many people to find their voice, to really start to unravel the limiting beliefs and the programming that we've been fed and we've experienced so that they can really step into their power. And
thank you. It's been a pleasure. Been a pleasure.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.